And we are into the game. I'm just going to switch over and double check that everything is working properly. And here we are going into game one. It is going to be a TVT. And I have not actually seen this map before. This is a bit strange, anywho. Just going to quickly introduce the players plus add sound. In the top left corner, representing ToR, the red Terran. His ID is ToR Bobby. And down in the bottom right corner, representing FaDe, the blue Terran. His ID is FaDe Resin. Alrighty. So, I believe Resin is a silver Terran, and I'm not entirely sure. I didn't actually get a chance to check what Bobby is. I don't know too much about Bobby, unfortunately, but well, other than that he's representing ToR. I think it's going to be a pretty standard gasless 1-racks fast expand from Resin. And looking at Bobby's base, something similar. Bobby choosing not to wall off. Resin, however, is going to wall off. Resin getting a nice early scout into Bobby's base. He's going to see that there is no gas. Have a nice little wander around his base. He knows exactly what's in his base. Bobby, on the other hand, doesn't get the scout on Resin. I think he just missed Resin actually shooting down the scouting SCV for Bobby. Got to be happy about that. And both players dropping command centers on the low ground. I think Bobby's is slightly ahead of Resin's. I think he actually went for command center before getting that second supply depot. So his economy is probably going to be very slightly ahead. That being said, he did lose the SCV, so I'm not really sure. It probably evens it up. Resin immediately dropping down 3 barracks. Well, sorry, another 2 to make the total count 3. And Bobby, however, dropping down another 3, making a total of 4. Bobby going for his double gas. Resin doing something similar. So gas timing is quite the same. Main difference there being Bobby's going to have 1 extra barracks, so we'll see how that pans out, whether that means a few extra units. Resin taking the Zelnaga tower in the middle. I like that. I think that's quite smart, although I think you should probably swap that out for a Marine instead, but nevertheless he does, it's going to give him a bit of an advantage seeing any ground attacks coming through for Bobby. Bobby going for pretty fast double NG bays, so he's going to be looking to go for fast upgrades. Resin starting his tech with combat shield. Bobby throwing down some add-ons all at once. Let's have a look at what he has. 1 reactor, 2 reactors. So 2 reactors and 2 tech labs. I think with 2 tech labs, I'm guessing we're going to see Marine Marauder. No, he's going for Marines in the tech lab. barracks. Okay, that's interesting. Resin, on the other hand, going for something a little more standard, I suppose. Combat shields are still on the way. Getting one reactor and going for a pretty fast factory, so Resin, I expect he's going to try and turn that into a star, or he's going to get a starport out of that factory. But we'll see. Bobby supply capped himself momentarily there. Continuing with the marine production out of all these tech lab Raxes, and okay, he's going for combat shields and stim at the same time. As well as +1 attack and defense for his bio units. Resin scanning Bobby's face, going to see all those Raxes and probably going to be a little bit scared, so he's not actually going for a factory as of yet. On the other hand, Resin is doing what I said, getting a reactor on the factory so he can start pumping out the medivacs as soon as that starport's done. +1 weapons on the way. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think if Bobby hits a nice timing, then Resin could be in a bit of trouble. I think it just depends if he gets a couple of medivacs out, and also on the stim timings. I think actually it might be alright. Could be close whether stim's done or not. If he gets, if Bobby hesitates here and Resin gets a couple of medivacs and stim out before this attack hits, Resin should be fine. Bobby, it was almost a bit of a mistake. So we'll see what happens. Resin should know that this attack is coming, because Bobby's units are just walking right past the Zelnaga tower and doesn't even notice the SEV there. Bit of a mistake from Bobby, I think. The medivacs are out and stim is done for Resin. And I think if Resin actually just stims into Bobby's Marines, he can actually take these out with the medivacs. And here comes the engagement, and it certainly looks like it's favouring Resin. Bobby immediately pulling back here, stopping. I think that's a mistake for Bobby. Hesitating there, stopping, engaging for a bit, and losing a lot of Marines, because with the medivacs, Resin can just keep stimming, and there's not too much Bobby can do. So all of Bobby's Marines dying there. Resin now taking a nice healthy lead. It's about 20 supply. But he's continuing to pump Marines, and he's got a bunker, so Resin having a bit of a scare. He's gonna know that he can't quite attack just yet. One siege tank on the field for Bobby, and siege mode is almost done, so that's going to shore up his defenses. Siege tank production is also on the way for Resin. Similar timings on siege mode. Well, Resin's slightly behind, but one thing I should note is that Bobby is building a third command center in his base, whereas Resin, on the other hand, is not going for more, or not going for a third command center, but instead going for 3 barracks. Resin taking a forward position with his Marines and medivacs. So we're going to wait to see what happens. I think Resin still has that 20 supply lead. I think what he needs to do is do a little drop, and actually that's what he's doing right now. The timing couldn't be worse for Bobby as he rallies or moves his siege tanks forward. He does spot it now and stims his Marines in. The question is, well, there's a little bit of a mistake there. It was a little bit too late, but actually the drop for Resin was very sketchy, and the siege tanks being sieged up, crushing the Marine count of Resin, and that attack in the end does almost nothing. Bit unfortunate for Resin there. If it was a little bit quicker on that drop, he could have done a lot more damage. But with his Marines getting caught in here and the siege tanks going down, he couldn't stim over, couldn't really get to those siege tanks, and couldn't really pick up because of the Marines. So Bobby with that defense evening up the supply a little bit as both players continue to pump Marines. Tank Marine Medivac. Let's have a look at the upgrades. We've got 2-2 now just finishing for Bobby, whereas Resin is 2-1, so not too far behind. Resin probably needs to start his further upgrades pretty soon, although he's a bit low on minerals there. So Resin actually did take a third during that attack. Doesn't have any SCVs at that base yet, however Bobby does have his third up and pretty well saturated. I'll just flip over the income tabs. Both players still having a similar harvester count, but I think Bobby definitely has a bit of advantage. Might have just been from the mules though. So Bobby moving out into the middle of the map now, drops a scan down just to check to see if Resin's army, whether Resin's army is there or not. I don't think Resin, I'm not sure if Resin actually saw that army pushing out. He still has the watchtower, that SCV is still there. But Bobby needs to be careful here because he's alright now. He's got the siege up, and in fact Resin's in a bit of trouble here because his third is now exposed. Bobby moving a small pack of Marines in to snipe the orbital, and Resin's not trying to repair it, he's trying to float it away. He really needs to get the repair on because it is on fire. It's actually going down now, and with that almost getting supply cap there if it weren't for his SCVs dying. Resin's in a bit of a problem, or a bit of a pickle here with Bobby having this nice forward position and Resin losing his third, and it's going to make it really hard for him to take a third or retake a third, and has to be careful he doesn't lose some units there. In the meantime, 3-3 is almost done. Bobby's also starting vehicle plating 1. And Resin, in response, is going to go and take a third over here in a sneaky position. Although, looks like Bobby might end up getting the scout on this, and that's going to be a huge problem for Resin. That SCV is actually going to come down here and try and take that, try and take out Resin's SCV. Both players continuing to be a bit passive. I think Bobby, he has a nice force here. Probably too much. He's got plenty of medivacs. If he wants to, he could probably drop. Resin does have this side of the base pretty well defended with missile turrets, but I think if you get enough medivacs full of units, you can just plow through that. And at this point, he does have a third up, and he's just going to be so far ahead particularly in income, or have a look at the bank account for Bobby, pushing 7,500 minerals, up to 2k gas. So Resin's definitely in a bit of trouble. We have a bit of an engagement here. I think that's a mistake from Bobby, losing 50 supply there for pretty much no reason, but it needs to do a lot. I think he needs to do a lot worse than that in order to lose this game. Rez is just having a bit of a poke with his Vikings, and that's good. I think he needs to do more of that, definitely, and he needs to be careful. He needs to not stim Marines in one at a time. That's not a good plan. In actual fact, what would help Resin out a lot at the moment would be a Banshee. Bobby, as you can see, Bobby has his Marines kind of out of place there. In actual fact, it looks like Resin is going to do a drop on the tanks. I think that's a little bit sketchy, because if those Marines stim up and catch those medivacs off guard, Resin could be in trouble. No, it looks like instead he's going to float 3 medivacs full of Marines out, and probably should have done that a while ago. Just noticing that back in Bobby's base he's building more starports with reactors, so realizes that he's these Vikings are going to be a problem with Resin having the air advantage, and this is going to be interesting. Bobby now moving out with his reinforcements, and the problem there is that this Marine drop for Resin is going to do a ton of damage, because that's Bobby's entire army, well, except for those siege tanks there. Resin's third command's going to get taken out, and Resin getting a bit frustrated. Just needs to calm down. He's not. I mean, he can do so much damage with those drops, although I think I just missed something. I just missed a bit of an attack from the... Oh, I apologise, guys. I just missed Resin's other medivacs getting shot down, but, well, okay. In any case, we are going into Game 2. The game is up. It has already started. I'll just quickly reintroduce our ToR player down in the bottom left corner. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, I just clicked some... I clicked something... hang on.
This is a professional cast, by the way.
That's really weird. That button's not working. Anywho, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce the players. Down the bottom left corner, representing ToR, the reigning victor Terran player. His ideas: ToR Bobby. Control W is supposed to remove something. Anywho, and in the top right corner, a zerg player representing FaDe. His ideas: FaDe, Mr. Badass. Remind me, Control W is supposed to remove the like the UI in the bottom.
Yeah, it's supposed to remove the interface down the bottom, but it looks like with the recent patch, it's actually removed that command. So I'm not sure.
It worked. It worked last game. So yeah.
Well, it's not working for me either, so... Bit strange.
It's actually doing some really weird stuff. Really weird stuff. It's like giving me sight of Mr. Badass and then changing the colours. I don't know. Anywho, enough of that. More commentary about the game. We have a 1-Rex fast expand for Bobby, and for Mr. Badass, pretty standard. I think that was like a 15 hatch, 15 pour, 14.
Yeah,
14, 14, 14, 15, something like that. Going for kind of later gas. I mean, not... I don't know. No, that's probably standard. It's not super early, but it's kind of normal. It's still fairly early speed, but not super early speed.
Certainly not focusing on it that much because it was started as the spawning pool was completing, and normally you'd have that that assimilator or extractor or refinery ready up and going, and already having gas being mined if you wanted that really quick speedling upgrade.
Looks like you might just get that. Yeah, he's going to kill that scouting SCV. Bobby dropping down a bunker.
Yeah, just going to push out. 1-Rex expands into double gas and then getting his factory up and running. So probably be seeing our Hellion, reacted Hellions coming out, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not he goes into a siege tank setup or he actually follows up that pressure with Banshees.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're going to go Banshees, probably go a little bit sooner. But
oh, there's the Starport.
Banshees. I've heard Banshees are always good. It could be a Raptor Hellion drop.
Certainly. But this map is very open for harassing the third, which Mr. Badass has actually taken now. So, personally, from my recent experience with some coaching that I've had from Redemption, recent clan FaDe member, going into reacted Hellions, into a Banshee follow-up and harassing the third, so that you can actually stabilise your own economy, and that sort of thing really helps out quite a lot.
Okay. And it is going to be Banshee production. Well called, Resin.
I know my Terrans.
I'm guessing we're going to see Cloak soon as well. He's got 300 gas in the bank. Although he's supply capped himself. Yeah, alright, so going to have a bit of a poke with his 4 Hellions here.
Yeah,
at the
he's
front door.
the Banshees off to the Hellions, so I'm surprised he's not being a little bit more active with the Hellions here and just scouting around to see how greedy the Zerg is actually being.
Yeah, he'd definitely do well to have a poke at the third, see what's there. You could actually get in there and pick off that queen if he's quick enough. Let's see. Ooh, sniping that drone before it got to place the spine crawler down. Immediately turning the other into an extractor. It's a nice little play by Mr. Badass. And he's just going to get the hell out. Get the hell out of Dodge with that queen.
Yeah. So it's a good idea, safe idea, especially now with the Banshee in there.
Yeah, it looks like he might end up sacrificing his... No, he's going to push out. He's got 5 queens, and that's actually going to be enough without Cloak to basically deter Bobby, although he needs to be careful. He's sending these queens off creep.
The queens are stuck out on non-creep.
That's exactly right, but Bobby's being a little too passive with the units there. Needs to get those Hellions in behind the spine crawler, deciding to push back instead. I think that was a bit of a mistake by Bobby. He could have come in and roasted all those Hellions because there's only one spine crawler there. But the Queens are back into position defending the natural now, and I'm just going to have a little bit of a geese at Bobby's base. He's starting tank production now, so going to be tank marine, throwing down some more Raxes, getting reactors on them, and gonna move his orbital down to take the third.
Yep.
Still,
and a macro hatch coming down for Mr. Badass. And while she is correct in saying that you should be a little bit more active with those Hellions, you should really be harassing that third and poking into the third, and then poking into the natural, poking into the third. Just being a lot more active. At this level, it's a little bit hard to manage that control.
You're definitely right. The Queen's only just popped now, and is only just throwing down the spine crawlers. Even if those spine crawlers did get up, he could still run them past. But I think he's just a bit scared. Well, actually, I think he's focused more on this push that's coming, and this is a pretty scary push from Bobby. He's got a couple of tanks. Siege mode is done. He's got Stim Marines, Medivac, 4 Medivacs. Probably who doesn't quite need that many Medivacs for such a small Marine count.
Needs to pull back these Queens. Really needs to actually get a little bit more active with those Queens. Be a little bit more map aware. Badass does. Needs to transfuse that spine crawler. Doesn't want to lose these lings to this early pressure just yet.
So I'm a little bit confused by Bobby pulling back there.
Well, this is actually interesting because Bobby's actually taking down these boxes here, whereas it would be so much better if he actually left that there and forced the zerg into the channel with the siege tanks there. So, interesting choice there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And now he's going to have it. He's going to try and drop into the main. I don't know. I can see that drop doing damage, but not if he's going to send them
straight into the
spawn crawler. So there we go. He's dropping them just out of place, and Badass a little bit slow to react here. I think he needs to send his Marines up there to defend. He's actually got some Banelings here, and oh no! The Banelings connect! Bobby picking up a few units, dropping them, trying to explode some of those Banelings.
And
but
at Bobby's third, we do have a Ling run by, taking out a number of SCVs here. It's a little bit slow reaction here from Bobby.
Yeah, definitely a slow reaction there. Taking out, how many was that? Taking out 2. Wait, nine. Sorry, Bobby.
Taken down by Mr. Badass now.
Yeah.
Only the 2 workers for ToR Bobby. I was about to call him Mr. Bobby, but just because we seem to be calling everyone Mr. these days.
Mr. Badass taking a 4th. Both players still on pretty even population counts, despite having massive bank accounts. I think Mr. Badass in particular needs to spend some of that, spend some of those resources.
He needs to get his injects going and that sort of thing, because he's going to be able to push out muters in a few seconds, because that Spire is almost done.
Well, in actual fact, he's
gone Infestors.
Yeah, he's
10 Infestors on the way. Yeah,
Pathogen Glands have just finished there. It's going for Ling Bane Infestor. Bobby, I feel, is being way too passive here. He's going to lose the massive army advantage that he had, because most of Mr. Badass's population was drones. 81 drones he's sitting at. And you're right, once he does have that lava, it's going to be pretty hard for Bobby to stop the reinforcements, particularly with all the infestors that have come out. Noticing that Mr. Badass is taking to Greater Spire.
The
And
interesting thing is that also that Mr. Badass has taken up almost every single base that is available. There is a push coming into the northern central base of Mr. Badass. He should put a cancel on it very quickly, but no, there's no cancel on there.
oh, it doesn't matter. He's got so much. He's got so much money in the bank. It doesn't.
Pretty much got every other spot on the map as well.
Yeah.
So.
He's got a drop of Marines down this bottom corner, just sitting idle there. Needs to do something with those, because there's nothing to defend that sort of 4th-y, 5th-y, whatever you want to call it. Bit of a mistake, I think, from Mr. Badass moving the Lings into the Marines. They're just going to die. It has a ton of infestors here. He needs to be careful that the tanks don't.
Infestors as well.
He needs to do something with the infestors, I think. But he, I don't know. He does kind of need the Lings and Banes to. I'm really worried about those. Down goes another infestor. Yeah, Rip just really needs to spend some of that money that he has. Oh, he's kind of spending some of it.
Get those brood lords out because he's got the Raptors on the field.
Yeah.
He's gonna lose this shit.
Well, yeah, I think
that's okay.
I think it's fine.
He has got 2 of the bases up on either side of the map, and he's pretty happy just to sit back and.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Wait for these brood lords to come.
I don't think Bobby realizes how far ahead in the food count he is, and about to be was, I think. But yeah, hatching 3 broodlords, probably needs to hatch a few more. He's a bit too low on gas to do that, I think. But yeah, once they do, his army is going to be really good. I mean, Infestor Broodlord is very hard to kill certainly without a decent Viking count. Broodlord's coming in, taking out 1 tank.
We see a couple extra starports coming.
Oh, he needs to be careful. He loses a Broodlord. He's going to lose another. Oh no! Oh no! And that was only a small pack of Marines that he traded for Broodlords. So that engagement very much going into Bobby's favour, I think there.
Yeah, it gives him a little bit of extra time just to get his extra starports up and running so he can actually start that Viking production.
Yeah. And he's sending a massive. Yeah, he's sending a massive army down to this bottom base, and needs to be careful. Losing a couple of siege tanks. But
these tanks are just moving in.
They know the Banelings couldn't quite make it through the tanks, and those Banelings aren't going to do too much. There's quite a bit of lag. Meanwhile, more Broodlords engaging. Marines come and stem up, and Mr. Bass is losing Broodlords for nothing. Infestors fungling, but I think it's just all a bit too late.
And the scary thing here is that Bobby's actually got reinforcements in his medivacs there as well. While he's
Yeah, Mr. Badass losing the bottom base.
doesn't want to lose that bottom base and sending a lot of links down to the bottom, so maybe he's going to try for a run by here, just to put the pressure back onto Bobby at his own base.
Yeah, well, it's going to get those Lings into the third. That's going to be able to do a little bit of damage, but tank Marine push at Mr. Badass's third is going to be too much, I think, for Mr. Badass to handle. He's sending Lings in, but this is the problem. You can't just send Lings in by themselves. He's now rallying Infestors in, bungling them, and oh no, that was horrible to watch. That was horrible to watch. And GG from Mr. Badass.
GG.